Hey, how's it going? It's Keith Townsend, principal of the CTO Advisor. We're doing another Where's Who in the World. Last couple of weeks ago, we talked to Bobby Allen, who is now VP of Alliances over at Cloud Genera, focused on their VP of Alliances over at Turbonomics, coming from Cloud Genera. He's focused on the AWS relationship. Now we have another industry analyst, industry influencer, someone who's done some work for the CTO Advisor. You know him with some of his famous CTO Advisor hits, which are VMware Cloud Solution Options and upcoming white paper / tech note on Kubernetes. You guys will, I think, appreciate that. Matt Leib. Matt, welcome to the program.
Hi, Keith. Thank you so much. Well, happy to be here.
So, Matt, it's been a while since you went on this independent route, and you've decided to, the CTO Advisor just wasn't giving you enough work and paying you enough money.
I can't blame you for that, buddy.
Well, we paying tweets, so you were getting paid well. I was tweeting your name out like every other day, so I don't know. I don't know how the exposure wasn't enough for you. So first off, where did you end up?
Well, I'm working for IDC. My specific role is called the research director. And basically what I'm focusing on is block and file and quite often object storage in the unstructured data space at IDC. That's a long way of saying, yeah, I'm another analyst over there.
So you kept your analyst hat on, which is really interesting because when we talked a year ago, when you made your last transition, you kind of had your eye out for analyst work. You went the independent route at first. Mm-hmm. You were doing some research for a GigOhm and some independent research for the CTO Advisor, and IDC came knocking. What appealed to you about the IDC?
Well, for lack of a better and less pragmatic answer, the real answer is I needed something full-time, salaried, where the workflow was going to keep me busy on a 9-to-5 basis. Mm-hmm. And not that I ever work 9 to 5; it's always more than that. But ultimately, I don't have to worry so much about where the next gig is coming from, and that's. I know it's a journey you went on as well. The first iteration of the CTO Advisor, you had to evaluate whether the many offers that were coming to you were going to be far more valuable to you than keeping the main line of your business going. And obviously you kept it going outside of the full-time employment. And, thrillingly, you came back to it because I think it's a great model.
Yeah, it is a really tough going. When I set out the first time, I knew that consulting is kind of a feast or famine type of business. So you really need to have a secondary source of income, and the research and sponsored content was meant to be that secondary source of income. I discovered in my case that the research and sponsored content became the primary source of income. Wasn't prepared for that type of business model. I'm, kind of a advisory management consultant at heart. So, we pivoted and now we're back at it. But you're absolutely right. It is really tough to make a go at it time to time. So let's kind of go on this thread and pull on this thread and maybe save some folks some angst or some aggravation. What were some of the major lessons learned while you were out in the research market? So let's preference one thing. First, IDC is an amazing company. I mean, they have some of the best research directors in the industry, some people that I really respect there, and they do some important customer work. So obviously, you were good enough to be a research director at IDC a year ago versus now, and you're still the same guy. What's what was the challenge? Why was it so hard to find independent work?
Well, we to answer that truthfully, we have to go back a little further.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Obviously, you and I both live in the Chicago metro, and a lot of the considerations in product marketing, product management, evangelism, et cetera, required you to be far more regularly in the Bay Area,
Mm-hmm.
most typically. And, the travel expenses, the potential time lag in getting me out there has hindered me in doing those kind of roles, which really is what I've been doing as an avocation probably 12 years now. Oddly, the pandemic has made it clear to a lot of these companies that providing those analyst type functions from a remote access kind of way, just like we're doing this right now, is incredibly viable. I don't think the tools were ever the shortfall. I think it was a perception of somebody wants to be able to tap me on the shoulder and say, hey, we've reached this hitch or this need or whatever it is. And that's really not requisite, I think, for this. So so a year ago when we talked, I absolutely wanted to do this. I wanted to do this for a very long time. It's just taken sort of a confluence of events to come to this point where I've been seen as a more viable option in these spaces. Now, let me be clear: the IDC role, I think it's a plum position. I'm really excited about it, but it was about 6 months in the making. So
I remember when you first started interviewing for it, you were pretty excited for it 6 months ago.
Yeah, it almost felt like it was dead on the vine, and in truth, I think it may have been for a while. It took until the right position at IDC opened up, and it took until I had a little bit more of a track record, I believe, as an independent analyst. Certainly, the OCVS document that you and I created helped in that respect. Most of the blogging that I've been doing, for the last 12 years has been far less long-term projects, far less in terms of the depth
right.
at which we went. And it was a great project. I was appreciative of not only the work, but the opportunity to sort of spread my wings in that direction. I was asked to do a presentation in the final interview process. And so I created a document lining itself up towards the market space that they had asked me to be working in. And it was received well, and I got an offer from it. But it did take a while.
Yeah, I went through the interview process with Gartner, which is similar and it's very long, very intense. And I think what our audience would be interested in, many folks who watched this kind of look at what we do broadly and think, man, it would be wonderful to do what Keith and what Matt and Steven and the group does, to be able to just basically go to shows and write about this stuff, create content around it. And the dirty secret is that you have to make money. So there's basically only, before, the rise of the independent influencer and the independent analyst, there was basically only two routes you could go to do this type of thing for a living. You can become an evangelist at a software or hardware or services company, a technology company, or you could go the Gartner IDC route. There's only so many Gartner IDC positions, and there's only so many evangelist roles within large software companies. And on top of that, you're kind of stuck talking about that one talk track, and it's not really an independent analyst. If you want to be independent, if you want to go from blogging to Keith or Matt, you have to figure out a business model today. Like I in my business can support some people from throwing them independent work, the OVs, the OCVS, the Oracle Cloud VMware Solutions paper was a great opportunity. Like you said, you got an opportunity to spread your wings, show your analyst muscles and capabilities to the folks at like IDC. Tom Green did the back end work of that. Spent
Great work.
Hundreds of hours of engineering work, getting in the lab. Those projects have to be sold. So you have to have you have to have opportunity. Fortunately for me, I entered the CTO Advisor at the right time, at the right moment. I was at shows for the past few years. I was meeting people. So this aspect that you're talking about being around the Valley absolutely has to be true. I spent my own money to go into the Valley and have sales meetings, to talk to vendors, talk to customers, curate the business of the CTO Advisor even before I became the
And some of those deals have a really, really long tail.
Yeah, some of them have a really long tail. Intel is a sponsor of the CTO Advisor data center. It took or the CTO Advisor hybrid infrastructure. I reached out to Intel September of 2019, and the contract for that service wasn't signed until July 2020. So almost a full year to cultivate the sale. And then let's not talk about the first time you actually receive a paycheck from that. So it's a scary thing. So lessons learned. What were some of the lessons learned from your previous year of search?
It's crazy to say this, but in most cases, it was almost exactly what I anticipated. It was, and I'm not talking about the job search itself, but acting as an analyst for you guys and for Ben over at GigaOM required me talking to vendors, required me seeing solutions, evaluating those solutions, taking copious notes and trying to pile those notes together into a document that not only reads well and is understandable to the audience we're seeking, but makes sense. It's organized. It even looks in your case like a CTO Advisor white paper. That's really important. And a lot of that work, quite frankly, particularly in the document processing, the aesthetic aspect of it, was done on your end. But the writing for me, I was a lit major in college.
Right.
Writing has always been something I've done. And, I think that I consistently get better at it. I think I've developed a voice over the years that, where my audience understands what I'm saying with a note of sort of maybe some understanding that I tend to use too many words, which, believe me, you and I talked about more than once. But I don't have to, write the entirely complex sentences, and I just need to be organized and plain spoken in the documentation I create, and hope that it, hits the points I need it to hit, and that the audience receives it well.
Yeah, this stuff is hard. I think one of the biggest challenges with my business is finding Matt Leibs and Alistair Cooks and the likes when there's opportunities to create this great research. These research efforts take. I don't think people realize it. To do a proper research document is tens of thousands of dollars of work. Like each paper, each piece of research is tens of thousands of dollars of investment from IDC, Gartner, etc. It's not just the analyst. As you hand it to, there's copy editors, there's layout, there's revisions. We have to get the stuff technically reviewed. So not only do you give me the document, you're a smarter engineer and architect than I am, but just me peer reviewing the document is not enough. I have to hire someone else. We hire a third person to peer review our work just so it could stand to the muster when it's released. It is much bigger than writing a blog post. Like writing a blog post, I can write a blog post and I can be wrong and I can publish it and I can do an addendum at the end and say, hey, you know what, I was wrong about X, Y, or Z.
I don't mind taking the heat when I'm wrong.
No, I don't mind taking
an analyst firm, you can't afford that.
No, you can't afford that. So I really appreciate the rigor you put into the document. I'm really excited to see the work that you're going to produce at IDC. I know it takes a while to get your first piece of documentation or first piece of research published. I know it's in the works, but it takes a while. It is IDC and Gartner and all the likes are a machine. They'll probably do a little bit better than me. I'm looking forward to hearing the lessons learned from you. I'm looking forward to that first piece of work. Let's ask the question. When should we expect the first Matt Leib byline from Gartner?
I have a couple of docs on my agenda right now. There might be a quick hit that hits probably mid-March or so, but I think the first real research project is probably due in the beginning of second quarter.
So Matt, I really appreciate you jumping on. I appreciate all of the work that you've done for the CTO Advisor over the past year. You have helped make us better. You've helped give us a voice other than mine, which I really appreciate, and I think the audience appreciates too. For those that want to follow you on the Twitters or web, how can they find you?
So on Twitter, it's at MBLEIB. And remember, I spell my last name wrong.
It's E before I, which is weird.
Yes, exactly. That's an Ellis Island name.
Yeah.
The blog is virtually tied to my desktop.com, which is, of course, way too long. Though I'm likely going to be spending less time on the blog, because most of my writing is going to go to my friends over at IDC.
Well as it should. Appreciate the folks at IDC picking up one of my favorite analysts in the industry. If you want to learn more about the CTO Advisor, you can find us on the web. Matt has my new CTO Advisor cup. TheCTOadvisor.com is the website. At CTO Advisor is my Twitter handle. Talk to you next CTO Dose.
Thank you.